Hey, so this is some hot guild gameplay coming your way from Mr. I Has Pinecone. Starting off, we got our trader choice. We had Yui, Burseg, Otheme, and Fade. And I'm not trying to set any crazy records here. I'm just going to do the reasonable play of take Fade Ralph the trader because he's probably the best trader in the game. Again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. No need to be a hero. If you have the option of taking Fade Ralph as your trader, you should just take him as your trader. I get the Pocket Kurama here, which is really useful. Having Pocket Kurama is really strong. You can surprise Atreides because they don't know you have it, or you can just surprise BG when they expect to have voice early on because, early on, Kuramas aren't always out early on, but you can surprise them with that, so that's a very high commodity. I am not going to spend that Kurama without first thinking a lot about it. As guild, I try not to just auto bid on a card if it's worth a low amount. Unlike other factions, Guild just doesn't have card knowledge and doesn't have the spice early to buy card knowledge. Generally, you just want to buy cards if you think they're good, because other factions can just buy cards that are cheap. BG, they love worthless cards. Harkonnen, they get their free cards. Fremen, if they buy a bad card, they're generally in lots of fights anyway, so they can afford to dump bad cards when they get bad cards. As Guild, though, you do not want to willy-nilly just buy random cards, because it'll just not work out well for you when you've got two worthless cards in your hand and a shield, and now you're full and you need to try and dump a bunch of these cards, and it can be kind of inconvenient to do that. On the first card in bidding here, Harkonnen bid 4 for it. I generally agree with this play. As Harkonnen, turn 1, you gotta buy at least one card, so might as well just make it the first one, and 4 is a high enough bid that usually no one's gonna outbid you unless they know what the card is. Card number 2 goes up. Harkonnen also bid 4 here, but the Emperor sees that, and the Emperor has the ability to discount other players in Dreams for treachery cards, and so they say, hey Fremen, I'll discount you this card by 2 so you can bid on it, so the Harkonnen don't get a second card for cheap. I generally don't try and redirect cards from Harkonnen as Emperor this way. I usually just let Harkonnen have cards if they want them, but it's not a bad play. Harkonnen can be really scary, especially turn 1, so redirecting a card is always good. Card number 3 officially begins the Atreides funny business. The Atreides bid 5. And the thing is, when Atreides bid on a card like this, it can be anywhere from random defense to like the best cards in the game, like a Kurama or supplies. So I say, hey Emp, sub me 1 and I'll show you what the card is. So they're only discounting it by 1, so they're getting 5 spice either way, but it'll go to the guild, who's generally less threatening than the Atreides are. And Emp will get to see it. And so Emperor accepts the bid, and then I get it for 6. I do regret it, though, because ends up just being a snooper. Like I said, Atreides can just bid like really high on defenses and get away with it. And they can also, of course, be just bluff, but bidding high on defenses is kind of halfway between a bluff and actually like an insane card, because Atreides can utilize defenses really well. Also, this play is kind of risky because I don't have any spice anymore because I spent all 5 of it on the card. So if I could hypothetically be locked out of some plays in shipping a movement because I can't ship and move until, people actually pay spice to ship. So I could be punished here, and it ends up not, though, thankfully. And then we go on to card 4. Hark bid 5 on this. This will bring them down to 1 spice on turn 1. I know a lot of really good Hark players that will do the strat where they spend 9 spice on cards turn 1. I generally don't like it, though. I think it's kind of risky. And Harkonnen, you can have a hard time getting spice as Harkonnen. But again, I know some really strong Hark players that do this, so maybe it's fine. I tell you what's not fine, though. Atreides having cheap cards. Atreides bid on this card for 5, which again isn't that cheap, but if they're gonna get a card, they should probably pay higher. And so Emp outbids them. Typical Atreides. Atreides doesn't buy a lot of cards, turn 1 especially. And we do this again. Atreides bid 4 on card 6. And based on Emp's reaction to card number 5, I think the Atreides bidding 5 on that card was a bluff because Emperor does not seem happy about it. But the fact that after Emp outbids them for 5, Atreides also then goes up to 6 means that it's for sure almost not a bluff. If it's a bluff, it's a legendary level bluff. Then Emp has to face his own insecurities and think, is this card worth 7 spice? Do I deserve this card for 7 spice? Then Emperor decides to treat himself and get it. Again, with Atreides, when they're bidding this high on cards, it could still just be like a random defense that they want, and you wouldn't know. It's very hard to pin down exactly what the card is. And then I get my first serious decision as Guild. In Dream Rules, Guild can affect other players' turn order instead of their own if they want. So what I end up doing here is I make the Atreides go first, and I take the Atreides old spot in turn order. Because kind of everyone needs to do their job to bully Atreides turn 1 a little bit, because Atreides is weakest turn 1. And then Freyek has a decision to make. For me, I would have two options that I would go for. I would either try and get the Bene Gesserit to throw to me, just get the Bene Gesserit to ship 1 into Arrakeen, and then throw the fight so that no one else can enter Arrakeen. So that, I just get the Arrakeen. And BG might want spice, or they might want card knowledge in exchange for that. Just see what they would want to offer. And then that's option 1 for me. And option 2 for me is just going straight to the Polar Sink. It's having all your forces dead is not worth it as Atreides turn 1, because again, turn 1 is when you're weakest. Freyek goes for kind of like the greedy play here though, which is goes to Sihaya Ridge. Because, he's not in a stronghold. Other people can have the stronghold. I think he assumed that, Harkonnen would take the free stronghold. But it ends up getting immediately punished because the Bene Gesserit ship 1 to Arrakeen, then move from the Polar Sink to Sihaya Ridge to extort some spice out of the Atreides. If Atreides only bought 1 card this turn, Bene Gesserit can bully them a little bit too and, extort some of that spice out of them. As for Harkonnen's turn, Harkonnen, I think, was originally a joke when they said this, but they said, hey, if everyone gives me 1 spice, so total 5 spice, I will move and attack the Atreides here. And then me, BG, and Emperor look at each other and are like, yeah, we'll pay for that. If you think it's worth it for you for 5 spice to go there, that would be awesome for us. Having the 2 10 stacks on the board be significantly reduced turn 1 for very little cost is very much worth it for us. And honestly, it's probably worth it for Harkonnen too. If they can get a leader stolen and get that Sihaya Ridge spice, that could definitely be worth it in addition to the 5 spice they're just getting from us normally. And so we just go for that. And it's kind of awesome. It's just these funny deals that make Dune so fun. And the second half of the shipping and movement phase, not nearly as exciting and interesting as the first half was. Fourth up is Emperor. The winners of the first 3 fights in Dream Rules get tech tokens, and so Emperor just does the level 1 deal of, hey BG, I'll buy you a card if you throw to me in Arrakeen, and BG just wanted Arrakeen for the Thopters so they could get from the Polar Sink to Sihaya Ridge anyway, so they're just like, yeah, I'll throw. Simple as. BG gets a card out of it, Emperor gets his tech token, that's nice and all that. And then the Fremen are up 5th. The Fremen do their typical level 1 play of, oh, I see there's an under-defended spice blow in Habanya Ridge Flat. Time to send my forces there. Woo-hoo-hoo. And then I don't really see any options open for me. As Guild, you don't want to fight very much. Guild, it's just expensive for you to fight. Guild's retreat ability helps, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, fighting is expensive as Guild, so I'm just going to make a developing move that will make it hopefully easier to win on future turns, because I'll put 2 forces in the Polar Sink. Those 2 forces can from the Polar Sink can move into any stronghold except Habanya Ridge Flat, which, can be really useful. Sometimes 2 forces in the sink is all you need to go for that win attempt, because, you have 5 and Tukes already. You ship like 10 to Carthag and then move the 2 in the sink to Tabr. All right. Battle phase time. The Bene Gesserit get to choose where to fight. In Sihaya Ridge, notably, there's a 3-way fight. Both the Harkonnen, BG, and Atreides are all in there. So the BG will resolve all battles they have first. And honestly, even if the BG beat the Atreides, who they choose to fight the Atreides first, even if they beat the Atreides, they're probably dialing all their forces anyway, because they don't want to fight Harkonnen. Harkonnen will kidnap your leader right here. Yeah, generally not pleasant to fight Harkonnen, so, of course, BG choose to fight Atreides, and they voice no poison weapon. Now, it's later revealed that the only card Atreides had in their hand at this point was a poison weapon, so that voice really hurts, especially because the BG aren't playing any combat cards in this battle plan, which will be revealed in just a second. So, yeah, that really, really sucks that the only weapon the Atreides had, the only card Atreides had, got stopped by the voice. But the Atreides do bank on the BG not having a weapon. They just dial 2, and they win. They get a tech token, and if they beat the Harkonnen here, they'll get a second token. And having 2 tech tokens as the Atreides is really, really strong, because it'll give you the income, and it'll also give you, the way that you can threaten a win attempt by fighting whoever has the third one. Odds are not looking great for the Atreides against the Harkonnen, though, because Harkonnen play supplies. This means that for this turn, the Harkonnen have a poison weapon, a projectile weapon, a shield, and a snooper all in their hand for just one turn. They basically have what's called a perfect hand for one turn. And Hark plus supplies is really tough to beat, especially when one does not have Fade Trader. So the Hark win, they kidnap a leader, and they even collect 6 spice from the territory because they only dial 7 of their forces. As Hark, having 10 forces in the Tleilaxu tanks turn 1 really sucks, but they've scored some major bag this turn and haven't really spent much. It's pretty nice as Harkonnen, honestly. That brings us to Collection and Mentat pause phase. I offer the Emperor, hey, I'll give you a spice right now if it means I can get a discount of 1 on a card next turn, and he says, yeah, sure. What I get out of this is it means I can claim Chum Charity, which is really nice. I can claim Chum Charity and effectively have 3 spice of buying power, and it's good for Emperor because the sub is only for 1 turn. So I'm highly incentivized to, actually like drive up prices and bid more on cards because this is a spice that I only have effectively to spend 1 turn. And during the Mentat pause, we're also talking about trading fates, and I just straight up announced to the table, hey, I have the Balisat Fate card. I'm willing to trade it I'm willing to trade it for a price. And Emperor says, I have the Worthless card for the Balisat, and so I'd love to buy the Fate card off of you. And we basically just come to the agreement that I will get 3 more subs and we trade fates. This is nice. Having 4 subs going into turn 2 is really nice because I currently, again, have 0 spice in my hidden area. So effectively having 6 spice of buying power is hyper nice. As we move into Storm phase, you might notice a certain pickle on the map. It's right where the storm is right now. This is in reference to a rule that's been in Dream Rules for a while, and not gonna lie, I hope we finally get around to removing this rule by the time I finish this video, so I'm not gonna actually explain what that rule is. But I'll leave it up to the viewers to figure out why we might mark the initial storm location. Or I guess the viewers could just read the Dream Rules documentation and learn what the rule is for themselves. But again, I'll leave that as an exercise for the viewers at home. We move into the bidding phase next. Fremen got some spice since last turn, so they're going to just start bidding on cards. And the Fremen, they're going to buy a card eventually. Like, they don't have any use for spice besides cards, so that spice is going towards cards. And Harkonnen, I think, would really just like the Fremen to spend it right now. They don't want the Fremen to just keep spending spice and keep increasing the price of cards, so Harkonnen goes 5 here. Fremen just passed, though. I think Harkonnen was kind of hoping they would outbid them, but that did not happen. On card number 2, we get more of the fun Atreides shenanigans. Atreides bid 6 on this card, and then BG outbid them. As much as I wouldn't like the BG buying this card here, like, the BG, I don't want them to have good cards, because the BG is one of those factions that you don't want having cards, but on the other hand, we also don't want Atreides having cards, and this is the card that the BG are also just getting for free because of the previous deal from Emperor, so there's nothing any of us can do about that, and honestly, it's not that big a deal. Then that takes us to card number 3. At this point, the Atreides is just kind of bidding on every card. Like, every single card that comes to them, they bid it up. So it's very, very hard to read what cards are actually good when Atreides just bids on all of them. It could be that every card is good, but I think at least a few of these have to be bluffs. And unless I see an all-out bidding war between 2 factions break out, I'm never going to be able to 100% know whether a card is good. The BG also outbid the Atreides here, this time using their own spice. And the BG says a comment here of, hey, what do the Atreides need cards for? They're not even on the planet anyway. And, fair point, BG. Fair point. After the BG buy that, we move on to card number 4. On card 4, Emp somehow, as bidding progresses, they somehow get it in their head that this card is good, even though the Atreides just bid 3. Fremen bid 2, Atreides bid 3, Hark outbid them. It's just like crazy that the Emp outbids 7 on this. Like Emp bids 7 and Atreides just bid 3. It's gonna be a minute until the recording catches up to me. But yeah, it's just the Emp really opened their mind's eye, and their mind's eye determined that this card was worth 7 somehow. Again, I don't know if I 100% agree with this play, but maybe they just rolled the dice and had a really good feeling about this. Card 5, I finally pull the trigger on using my subs that I got from Emperor, because my 4 subs will only last this turn, so I gotta use them or lose them. So I just, for this card and the next card, I just blindly bid 6, because again, I gotta use them or I'll lose them. Card number 5, which is this card, the Emperor outbid me, but then I do get card 6, and the card I get that's card 6 is the Chemistry. Chemistry is really nice because it counts as a snooper, or it can count as a poison weapon, and it can be used to get around voice, so I'm very happy to have picked up that Chemistry on card number 6. We blitz through revivals here. Revivals are pretty simple. Everyone just takes their revives. No one's paying for extra right now because no one's in the tanks that bad. And I gotta figure out what I'm doing in turn order. Atreides have been sufficiently bullied, I think. They have no cards and no troops, so that leaves the next biggest problem as the BG, but the guild kind of has a hard time bullying BG in turn order because they have their whole advisors and flipping from fighters to advisors ability, so I interject Emperor here. The idea behind this is that Harkonnen has kind of a win attempt here. The board is very open, and Harkonnen really likes open boards, and so I am basically forcing the Emperor to ship. They need to ship because I don't have any spice. I have 0 spice after that bidding round. The BG was going first, so they're going to have a hard time stopping Emperor. Fremen's probably going to get spice, and Atreides has no cards. So it's basically up to them to ship to give me spice to help stop the win, in addition to them just locking down a stronghold from a Harkonnen. And it works. This basically forcing the Emperor to ship works, because if they don't ship here, I think the game is almost deterministically over. So I'm basically forcing them to ship. So I get my spice from their shipping, and it's nice. The BG are up after Emperor. The BG doesn't really have a lot open for them, so they just kind of move from the Polar Sink to get some spice. Pretty simple BG play. BG's biggest weakness, besides having a low revival count, is a low amount of spice, and so if they can solve that problem for themselves, if they can get spice, they will be in a very good position to start dominating this game. So that's what they do. And then the Harkonnen are up next. The Harkonnen, again, they have a win attempt on the table, but it's a lot harder considering I'm going right after them and I have spice now, and the Emperor has already locked down Arrakeen. So Harkonnen kind of starts threatening some factions and then basically says, hey, I won't go for the win and make you ship guild if you don't challenge me in South Mesa. And I'm like, yeah, I wasn't planning on going to South Mesa anyway, you can have that spice. I'm up after Harkonnen because I interjected the Emperor to go first, and so I'm taking Emperor's old spot in turn order. And I might have a win attempt here. The Atreides is impotent, and so I'm not worrying about them. The Fremen is very limited in where they can have forces this turn, and so I calculate if I go for the win, I'll be fighting Hark, the single Hark that's left in Carthag, and the Fremen I'll be fighting either in Tuk Siege and or in Siege Tabor. In Dream Rules, the guild has an ability called Retreat. Basically, after battle plans are revealed, I can pay a bunch of spice to get my cards back and my troops back that I would lose in the battle. And that means I can take a lot riskier plays, like the play I'm doing right now. I'm shipping 3 or 6 total into Carthag and then moving 3 of them to Siege Tabor. Because I can go for more risky plays, because if things don't work out for me, I can just spend spice and get my troops and cards back, which are, troops and cards are the hardest thing for guild to get once they've lost. And I also have this Karama in my hand. That Karama that I had since the beginning of the game, I can use that to Karama either Fremen spice styling or Fedaykin. So this win attempt is honestly looking pretty good if the cards line up correctly. And the Fremen also, they only bought 1 card. They're not that big of a problem for me. I'm just hoping they don't full send. I'm hoping they don't ship into Tabor and Tukes, because I really don't want to fight the Fremen twice. That would just make this much more difficult, when I think, honestly, 1 fight is enough for us to know whether they would actually be able to stop me, because either they have the cards to beat me or they don't, because they only have 2 cards. What the Fremen end up doing here is they ship into Siege Tabor and then move into Habanya Siege. I don't hate this play. As Fremen, you gotta think, will I win the game off of this play? And why I say that is because most factions, they're alright with taking a free stronghold if it's available. The Fremen, though, because the Fremen are so limited in where they can be, you gotta think, okay, do I want to put this target on my back of being in a stronghold? Is me being in the stronghold going to lead to win attempts in the future? And in this case, I think the Fremen does have win attempts in turn 3 and turn 4 because they're in Habanya. So I actually do really like this play of going into strongholds as Fremen. But if you don't, as Fremen, if you don't see a win attempt in the next 2 or 3 turns, I would not go into Habanya here. But that's just my Fremen playstyle. Last up is Atreides and shipping a move. Sadly, there's no spice for them to get. So after really thinking, if there's any way that they can, make use of this shipping and movement turn, they decide just to pass. And I agree with this play. As Atreides here, you gotta save your spice for cards. And so you don't want to spend it on troops that aren't going to do anything. And that finally brings us into the battle phase. I don't get to choose the order of fights because I'm last in turn order, which really sucks. And I'm also fighting Harkonnen, which also majorly sucks. Fighting Harkonnen first is not where you want to be, because Harkonnen has an ability called Spite in Dreams, where if you kill their leader, they can basically force you to discard your treachery cards. There should be another video on this channel explaining exactly how that works, but yeah, basically kill the Harkonnen leader and you're in bad news. So I decide I'm going to not kill the Harkonnen leader. I'm just going to hope that they play only a poison weapon, and I'm just going to play a leader and my snooper and then just beat them on dial, because I have 3 troops in this location and they only have 1. And I agonize over which leader to use. I can either use one of my 3s or my 5. Because I don't have a safe leader, I never tried to trade for one or anything, so I don't know who the Harkonnen could have as trader. And after agonizing about it, I eventually switched to putting my 5 in my battle plan instead of one of my 3s. Staban Tuek is often a traitor because he's, a strong leader. But the Harkonnen don't actually get to choose their traitors, they just get their 4 random ones that they get during setup. And the reason I choose the 5 is A, I have a higher chance of beating the Harkonnen with it. But the real reason that I went here, the real reason I went with my 5 is because if I don't beat the Fremen, having the 5 safe against Harkonnen in the future will be more useful to me than knowing one of my 3s is safe against them. So that's, in the end of the day, why I ended up choosing my 5. And that does not work out well for me. After battle plans are revealed, turns out I was right with the snooper play. I would have won the battle. I would have won the battle if I had played one of my 3s. But Staban Tuek is a traitor, so Harkonnen call traitor. I lose my snooper. Harkonnen get 5 spice. Harkonnen are really happy about this, but I really don't like that. At least I didn't lose my chemistry, but man. And I can't even retreat. You can't retreat from a traitor call in Dreams. So I just have to suck it. And there's not even a point in me trying to win the Fremen battle. I just retreat after all battle plans are revealed and just ship my troops back to reserves because they're cheaper than, shipping them back is cheaper than reviving them. Given the same odds, I think I still would have gone for this win attempt, but that traitor call really does suck. Anyway, that's turn 2. BG collects some spice, Hark collects some spice. Hark and I make a deal. I happen to once again have their fate card, or I have the fate card that they have a worthless card for. And so I say, hey Hark, no hard feelings, I'll swap my fate with you if you ship at least 4 forces next turn. Honestly, I probably could have gone higher. I think Harkonnen were probably going to ship 4 anyway, but, it's having a guaranteed 4 is not too bad.